Hello designers, you're welcome to another tutorial. In this tutorial, I'm going to be using this fabric. It's a stretchy fabric and it's 2.5 yards of material. So I'm going to fold it into two this way and I'm going to pin it down because I'll be moving it a lot so I can show you what I'm doing. So I use the widest part of the body, which is the hip. I use that to fold this. After securing it with the pins, I'm going to fold it again a second time. So if you're not going to have a zip at the back, this is the way you will fold it. You will fold it twice so you can cut the front and the back together. Now I'm going to measure my neck width. From the folded part, I'll measure 3 inches inwards for my neck width. Then before I continue, I'm going to draw a line at the top of the fabric there. That is going to be my starting line. So after getting the neck width, I'm going to get the neck depth. I'm going to be using about 1 inch. So from the folded part again, I'm going to measure inward and get my shoulder. So this fabric is stretchy this way. So the shoulder, I'm going to use my exact shoulder. If the shoulder is 16 inches, I'll divide it by 2, that is 8 inches. So I won't add seam allowance 0.5. I won't add that 0.5. I'll use the exact 8 inches for it because it stretches and then it's going to expand if I add that ½ inch to it. So from that starting line, I'm going to measure my bust point length. I'll add ½ inch to it, seam allowance. So from there again, I'll measure my under bust. I'll make sure to add ½ inch seam allowance to the under bust. Then I'll measure the waist. So from the waist, I'll take the taper to the waistline and then I'll get my hip length, which is about 6 inches. Then I'll go back to the starting line again and then I'll measure my knee length. So the knee length I'm using is about 40 inches plus ½ inch seam allowance. So I'll be using 40.5. Then from the top again, I'll measure my 3/4 length. This dress is 3/4. So that's like 45 or 46 inches in length for the 3/4. On the line of the bust, I'm going to measure my actual bust circumference. Then I'll add ½ inch seam allowance because this fabric is stretchy this way. Just ½ inch seam allowance to it. Some people even cut it without adding any seam allowance if the fabric stretches very well. But for me, I'll add ½ inch seam allowance to mine. So the under bust, I'll mark my under bust and add ½ inch to it too. Then this is the waist. I'm adding ½ inch to it. This is the hip. I'll measure my hip here, add ½ inch to it. The bust, the under bust, the waist, the hip, I've gone ahead to divide it by 4 before measuring it here. Let's say the hip is 40 inches divided by 4, that's 10, plus ½ inch, that's 10.5. I will use the same on the knee length line because I want to pencil it. So what I will do is I will minus 1.5 inches from the 10 inches. That will be 8.5. Then I'll add ½ inch to it. So that will be about 9 inches. So I'm going to measure 9 inches on the knee length line and on the 3/4 line. So I can pencil this. Now I'm connecting the lines. So from the 3/4 line, I'll connect it to the knee length line and then connect it to the hip line. From the hip line, I'll connect it to the waistline, then to the under bust line and then to the bust. From the slanted line, I'm going to measure 1 inch down for shoulder slanting and then I'll connect it to the neck width. Now I want to draw my armhole. From the starting line, I'll be using my upper bust, which is 7, plus 1 inch, which I used to slant the shoulder, that is 8, plus half an inch for ease. So that will be 8.5. So from the starting line, I'll measure 8.5 inches down there. From the slanted line to that 8.5 line I drew, I'll get the midpoint. Then I'll measure half inch inward this way to curve my armhole. So from the slanted line, I'll connect it to the half inch I went inward and then into the line. So this is how to draw the armhole line. I'll connect it to the busts. Then I'll measure the line and be sure the armhole is exactly what I need. So according to the style, I noticed that the neck depth is a little bit down, so I want to make it half inch. Remember, I used 1 inch for my neck depth. Now I'm going to cut it out. So I'm cutting the back neckline for the 2 pieces. So for the front, for the back, you cut the back neckline because it is higher. Then after cutting it out, you remove one, and then the second one you will now adjust it to the neckline that you want for the front. That is the way we cut together, front and back together. You have to cut the higher neckline first. In this case, the back has the higher neckline, so I'm going to cut that first. Then I'll separate the two and then get the neckline for the front. As I said earlier, I only folded this into 2 to show you. I want the back to have zip and to have slit. So I'm going to remove one and then I'll use the other one to cut the back piece. I've gone ahead to fold my fabric into 2 again, and I'm going to place this one on it. Where I have that center front unfold, I'm going to leave space for my zipper, about 1 inch or 1.5. I'll leave it for my zipper allowance. Then I'm going to cut the same shape out, and then I will slit that fold for the back to create space for my zipper and my slit. Now I have my front and back. I'm going to remove the front piece. I'm going to measure my neck depth for the front and my neck width to form the princess Anne neckline. So remember, I used 3 inches for the neck depth. Down there where I want to make the princess Anne, I'll be using about 4 inches wideness. So the neck depth from the shoulder down, I'm going to be using almost 7 inches or 6.5. I will be using 6.5 inches. Then I'll draw a straight line and I'll measure 4 inches. So from that 4 inches, I'm going to connect it to the 3 inches of the neckline of the neck width. So this is what the front looks like. This is the shape and how it came out. I'm going to take the second piece. Remember, I cut 2 initially. I only cut 2 first because I wanted to show you how to cut it if you're not having a zip at the back. Since I'm having a zip at the back and I've cut the back, so this second one, I'm going to use it to cut my sleeve. I'm going to measure the length. I need 22 inches for my sleeve length. So I have about 23 inches here, which is quite okay for my sleeve length. So I'm going to measure 2.5 inches from that folded part. I'm going to measure 2.5 inches down for my slope depth, and then on that line I'm going to measure my round arm and I'll add half inch to it. So after getting the round arm, I'll get the middle of that. I'll draw the line up, and then I'll measure the middle of the 2.5 I also got. I'll draw the line, and then where the two line meets, where the cross meets, I'll use it to draw my slope for the upper part, and then I'll slope it down into the line. Then I'll measure if it will fit into my armhole. If it's not the same with my armhole, I will increase it. If I need 1 inch or 1.5, I'll add that to it. So I'm increasing this because it's not up to the armhole I need for the dress. So that is what I'll be using. Then from the top again, I'm going to measure my elbow length, and then I'll measure the long length of the sleeve. Then I'm going to measure my round elbow and add half inch to it. I'll also measure my round wrist and add half inch to it. I'll also be adding 1 inch extra because I want to make it like a line. I don't want to make the sleeve straight. I want a line. I want it to come out a little bit. So I'm adding 1 inch extra to it. So the first line is my original round wrist. I added half inch seam allowance, then 1 inch extra to make it a line. So I'll connect it this way. I'll curve that place well so I don't have a sharp V there. In case you don't want to bring out your own to form a line at the hem of the sleeve, you can draw it straight down. You won't need to add 1 inch to it. You draw it straight down this way if you don't want that 1 inch extra for a line. And if you want it even bigger, you want it like trumpet sleeve, you draw it out more than that 1 inch I put. You draw it this way. If you want like trumpet sleeve effect, you draw it out more. So depending on how you like it. Now I'm going to cut it out. I want to curve this place a bit. I don't want it straight down. I want to curve it so that it will size my round arm. Remember I added extra to get my armhole, so it will make my round arm to be big. So with this curve now, it will reduce it a bit so it will fit my round arm. If you want a fitted round arm, you have to curve it. Then here I'm going to be using the line of the 1 inch. I don't want the trumpet, I don't want it too wide, I don't want the trumpet on. So I'll use that line of the 1 inch to cut it. I'm going to measure the opening of the sleeve. I'm using about 7 inches. I'm using about 7 inches from the hem for that opening, that design on the sleeve. Then at the hem of the sleeve down there, I'm going to measure 1 inch. I'm going to cut off 1 inch. So I'll slant it and connect it to the 7 inches and then cut it out. So this is what the sleeve looks like. I'm going to separate it and I'll open it. This is what it will look like.
Thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed this tutorial. Please kindly like, share, comment, subscribe if you're new here, and click the notification bell. Thank you.